Hey everybody, this is my 55-gallon gourami tank, and today we are going to do, well, not really a before and after video. I guess technically it'll be a before and after video, but the before is not going to look very much different than the after. And that is because I just did a big water change on it the day before yesterday, maybe 40 to 50%, somewhere in that neighborhood. And while I was doing it, I noticed that the filter was really showing a reduced output, so it's probably getting really dirty on the inside and needs to be changed out, and so I'm going to do that. The other reason we're going to get in here and do a water change, other than the fact that if I'm going to be in there tinkering with the filter, I may as well do some water change. When I did my nitrate test on the tank, when I did my big water change the other day, the nitrate level was just through the roof. It was really red, and after the water change I checked again and I still had a fairly red vial. Now I know to you these are both going to look pretty much identical. Yeah, they absolutely look identical on camera here. When I'm looking at them under the proper light side by side, the one on the right is ever so slightly less red than the one on the left, and that of course is the one that I took after the water change. But as you can see, you know, that's after the water change. It's still that red, so that indicates that there is a lot of accumulating dissolved solids in the tank. We can check the nitrate and we can see the nitrate level in the tank. But if the nitrate level in the tank is that high, then so is everything else that accumulates. And it's also an indication that as all of that stuff has been accumulating, other things have been depleting. The mineralization in the tank has been getting less and less. The redox potential has been getting less and less, and so on and so forth. So it's time to get in there and really get the tank cleaned back up for fear of possible old tank syndrome. Now, my regular viewers will know that I've been talking about old tank syndrome quite a bit lately. I've been talking about doing a video about it and so on and so forth. I'm still working my way up to that video. If you're wondering why I'm thinking about it so much, I'm not currently having any issues with any of my tanks. But, you know, when you get to a certain age, you start thinking about different things than you thought about when you were younger and so on and so forth. And my tanks are kind of the same way. They all, or at least most of them, are now at that age where I've got different concerns than newer tanks. And when I start thinking about how the nitrate builds up over time, and I've kind of got that on my mind, you know, now that I've been thinking about that, I'm really aware of it. And I've been looking at some of these tanks that I tend to be a little more sporadic in my water change schedule. That's the word I was looking for. And this is one of them. This is one of those tanks that, other than the cyanobacteria that grows in there, which I don't really consider a problem, but if you want to call that a problem, the only problem I ever have with this tank is a little bit of cyanobacteria that grows in there. Otherwise, this tank just ticks over without issue, and as a result, I tend to do a little less frequent maintenance on it. And now we're getting to the point where, as you saw, even after a very large water change, I still have quite a bit of nitrate in the tank. And that, as I said, means I've also got quite a bit of hormones and other bacterial loads. The phosphates are building up, and whatever else, you know, mineral salts might develop or build up over time. All that stuff is building up at the same rate the nitrate is. Or maybe not at the same rate, but it's all building up. And if the nitrate is slowly accumulating, then a lot of other stuff is slowly accumulating at whatever pace it accumulates at. Anyway, I hope I didn't make that one too confusing. What we're going to do is just get in there and do a nice big water change. I don't need to worry about wiping down the glass or anything. I already did that 2 days ago. I'm also going to get in and get that filter taken care of. So I don't know if I'm going to shoot any video of being in the filter. Maybe I'll do a little bit of changing it out or something. I don't know. We'll see. So again, it's going to be a before and after sort of video. Not going to look a whole lot different in the before and after, but for whatever it's worth, there's your before. And there's your after. So we got in there and did a big fat water change. I changed out the filter. And as I kind of suspected, the filter was not that dirty. I did not think it had been that long since I had been in there and cleaned out that filter. And I was right. It really was not that dirty. But we did have the reduced water flow. So I had my suspicions about that. We will talk about that in a moment. But first, I want to show you exactly how much water I took out of the tank. And we will have one brief look at the filter while it is opened up. Alright everybody, we are about to reverse the flow, but I wanted to give you a look at the filter really quickly. I always find it very helpful to pre-fill it. And if you've got a canister filter and you're going to pre-fill them, then you'll sort of have to figure out exactly where that level is. If you don't put enough in there, then pre-filling it doesn't do you any good. And if you put too much in there, then putting the lid back on and sealing it down can become rather messy. But with the Sun filters, as much as I like them and as much as I recommend them, I will say that this really is not the best when it comes to getting the filter kind of started again and so on and so forth. So especially if you've got a Sun, I can't speak for other brands, but if you've got a Sun, then I would really recommend pre-filling that as much as you can. So just wanted to mainly give you a look at how much water we're actually removing from the tank today, and now we'll get back to the video. And one important point I want to stress is that my water is very similar coming out of my tap as it is to my tank water, even the groundwater. If I bypass my water system and take the water directly out of the ground just to top the tank off, it is very similar in its water chemistry. The pH is almost the same, the carbonate hardness, the general hardness, of course all that's down at 0, but they're both at 0, so there's no big shift in water chemistry when I do these really large water changes. The main difference is I'm removing a lot of dissolved solids. So the fish do experience a shift in the overall specific gravity of the water. The dissolved solids get reduced greatly, but the pH doesn't swing, the general hardness doesn't swing. None of it really shifts very far, and that way the fish do not undergo a lot of stress during these big water changes. If you're not sure about your water, or if your water really is very different than what it adjusts to once it's in your tank, then do smaller, more frequent water changes, and that will reduce the stress on your fish. Again, in my case, I know I can do these big water changes without really impacting the fish very much. So as far as the filter goes, what I think is beginning to happen is just over time, the impeller and the pump area that moves the water through it, that itself gets dirty and grungy. It's pretty easy to clean on a hang on the back type filter, but these, getting a little action going on in the tank there. These canister filters are a little different, and honestly, I've never actually taken one of these canister filters apart to the point where I've gotten to wherever the impeller and all that kind of stuff is. I can see where it is, but it's tucked up under a plate. I've honestly never even looked to see what kind of fasteners are in there. I don't know if they're Allen screws or just regular old Phillips head screws holding it together. So next time I do a water change on this tank, I will probably either try to just squirt a bunch of water through there and shake it around and knock a bunch of stuff loose, or if it's not too difficult to get in there, I will actually take it apart. And if I do that, we'll definitely shoot some video of what's going on the inside of the filter and everything. But I suspected possibly that it was the spray bar, so I took the spray bar off. I used a little bottle brush. I cleaned all the holes out, and of course in my previous water change I pulled the filter intake grate off and I cleaned all that out. So unless there's actually stuff clogging up the tube, then everything is wide open, and I can't imagine there is, because when I opened up the spray bar was all wide open. Some of the holes were a little bit clogged up, and it did flow better once I unclogged the holes, but that was also after I put all new filter material and everything in there, so it was just going to flow better anyway. We did get the flow up and going considerably, but it is still nowhere near where it should be, so I definitely think it's time to get in there and get that impeller cleaned up or whatever next time we're in there. So that's about it. I can't think of a whole lot more to say. Again, we're just sort of working on bringing the nitrates and everything down. Oh, I should have brought the vial in to test for the nitrates. Hold on, let me actually run in the other room and grab that real quick. Alright, so now you're starting to see a definitive difference. The vial on the right is the after, and the vial on the left there is the before. And again, on camera, under this kind of lighting conditions, you're not really seeing a dramatic change, but I can tell that this one is now definitely out of the red. We're down into the orange range, so we're under 40 parts per million now. It took 2 big water changes to do that. And remember that 2 big water changes like that, a 40% water change and a 50% water change, do not equal a 90% water change. That's not how it works. Once you've filled the tank back up, you've mixed all that old water in with the new water. So when you do another water change, you're pulling some of the old water out, but you're also pulling a lot of the water you just put in there out. And so it is definitely not the same. And in my case, I waited 2 days between water changes, so there was a couple of days where nitrate and fish poop and mulm and everything else began building back up over a little bit of time. So a 40% water change 2 days ago, and roughly we're going to call it a 50% water change today, and that now has us back down into the just under 40 parts per million, but that is technically orange, not red. So we are definitely under the 40 parts per million mark. So I'm going to do one more decent sized water change in the next few days, I think. Maybe we will get in there and tinker around with that filter a little bit. We'll see. But I want to get the tank just a little more cleaned up than this, so we'll have to wait and see how everything goes. So make sure you subscribe, that way you won't miss that or anything else I've got coming up. You never know what it's going to be with me. So thanks for watching this one. Don't forget that is my 55-gallon gourami tank. Thanks again. I'll see you real soon in the next one.